It's been almost half a year since the last Overwatch lore comic. Oh my lord. Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to Unit Lost. I am Josh, and I'm here today to talk to you about one specific thing. I'm a little bit under the weather, so I'm gonna just, take it easy, grab a coffee, guys, and let's talk about some lore and talk about the lore issues that Overwatch faces. This is mostly going to be focused on the fact that we haven't really seen much lore of anything, but specifically much lore from the comics front for a long time. This was actually highlighted sort of over the Christmas period, where the last time Overwatch has this website, it has a website, but it also has a specific website for comics that you can go to. And you look through that, and the last one that they put onto that website was the Yeti Hunt comic from last year. And when I say last year, I know, it's 2009, so you mean a month ago. No, I mean, 12 months ago. It's a cute comic, don't get me wrong. I'll throw some pictures up onto the screen so you can take a look at it, but it's not anything new, it's not anything lore-based, it's not anything built around the lore and the story, and there's just nothing added to it. The actual last comic they added, which isn't on that website, it actually took, you have to actively remember that it exists and go and find it yourself, is the the Blackwatch Retribution comic from last year's Retribution event. So it's about 6 months ago, right? About 6-7 months that we last had a new comic. Of course, the latest lore update that we had was, of course, the McCree short, the, revelation that, Echo is the thing inside the pod that was getting stolen on Route 66, and that Ash exists and that Bob exists, and sure, the fact that Bob exists in the universe is a great, cool lore revelation, but it's really not meaty, I suppose. It's the frustrating thing, right? Because there's a lot of people out there, Sty included, honestly, who don't really give a damn about the lore of the game. Like, they take a passing interest in it, but they don't really get engaged in it. There's nothing too interesting or too gripping about it, because you get all these characters, but they kind of, they're very comic booky, they're kind of one-note-ish, and so it doesn't really grab people, and people don't get invested in it. But I don't see it that way myself, and I'm pretty sure I'm not alone in this. I'm pretty sure someone else out there actually gives a damn. I'm pretty sure his name is Michael Chu, and he's apparently got a job, so he should be doing something. And I'm pretty sure Blizzard do come up with stuff, it's just they never seem to make anything and bring out new stuff with the lore. And here's the thing that gets me about Overwatch, right? Because I got my start on YouTube, I got my start on Overwatch by making these videos called Character Analysis, right? Where, as the characters were unveiled for the first time, I sort of took the characters, broke them down, explained them, and also one of the things I was doing was I was explaining the narrative highlights, like the narrative beats of each character. So, let's take Tracer, for example. Well, Tracer is like the spirit of Overwatch, right? She's the spirit of bright heroism, she's the optimist, she's the happy-go-lucky, bubbly individual. Tracer shouldn't really be seen to be too depressed or too down at times. Like, if she is, that should be a major thing. It should be used to reinforce that it's a major thing. But she should be the optimist. She should be the one trying to do the right thing at all times, right? Because that's how you use a character like Tracer. Meanwhile, you have Reaper, who is just almost comically edgy, right? He is just so over the top, so overblown, so fundamentally Reaper, that he's bleeds edge. He listens to Linkin Park and all that stuff. I mean, I shouldn't judge too harshly. I come from that generation. I listen to Linkin Park too. Right? He's not alone in that fact. So here's the thing. Here's where I get frustrated, right? Because sure, the animated shorts are cool, but the thing with the animated shorts is they are very, very, very expensive. They aren't going to just have two characters having a conversation, or if they are going to have two characters having a conversation, then it's going to be like the Dragons cinematic, right? Where they're fighting each other, they're doing all this cool visual stuff, there's arrows flying around, there's shurikens here, there's a dragon, there's two dragons, it's so cool. But that's, not a good place to develop storyline. That's not a good place to develop character interactions. And to me, the most interesting things in a narrative like Overwatch, where you have almost 30 characters involved, probably more characters with the ancillary characters as well bubbling around, stuff like Emily, for example, getting involved, characters who aren't necessarily playable but are involved in the storyline in some way. You have all these characters. The interesting thing, the exciting thing is watching these characters interact, and that's where they get some strength, right? Where you get to see different characters sort of bouncing off one another. And you're not going to get that in an animated short. You might get it in the pre-rendered cinematics done by people like Terran Gregory, who does stuff for WoW, the Junkertown intro, those sorts of cinematics. You might be able to get it there because I'm sure those are much, much, much cheaper to make, right? People have been making stuff like that on Source Filmmaker for God knows how long, so I'm sure they can make stuff like that with Blizzard's own toolset. I guarantee they can do stuff like that. So it's very, very frustrating when you sort of look back and you go, well, what did they make? Like, when was the last time we had major story developments? Well, let's think. Well, the last comic was, there was Retribution comic, and then we had the May Snowball Offensive, not a story comic. Before that, we had a Junkenstein comic, which was just like a light, fluffy thing. Okay, sure. And then before that one, it was it wasn't the previous Retribution comic, it was the Zarya comic. It was the one where Zarya hunts down Sombra, but we had a big story revelation that Sombra has a name. Good lord, who knew that she had a first name and a last name? Olivia Colomar, spoilers. Doesn't mean anything to anybody. She could have had a name of Herpdy-Dubdy-Doo. It doesn't matter, so it's not a revelation. It's not like, she's named Olivia Lacroix. Oh my god, she's Widowmaker's daughter. No, it's just nothing. And it's very, very frustrating, right? Because the thing is this, we're 2 years into Overwatch's cycle, right? And when Overwatch began as a game and as a franchise, like 3 years ago pretty much now, it was like, oh, well, they've got this big universe, and you had like Chris Metzen and stuff, and it had that sort of heritage as well from being developed out of an MMORPG, so surely from that point, there's tons and tons and tons of story and narrative to draw upon, to build upon. They have this huge world to play around in, because if you've got to make an MMORPG, well, you've got to have a big flashed out setting to make it. You've got to have a ton of content to make it. So that's, I think, where you get a lot of this stuff with like the Omnic Crisis happening 30 years ago and stuff like that, where you have this weird timeline that Overwatch has, where you have basically 3 generations, like a 30-year time period where most of the game's events take place. Very confusing to people trying to get into it and trying to look into it, to try and pass out just, what people's relations are to each other. There's people out there who think that, like, Pharah is an Overwatch. She's not. Pharah has nothing to do with Overwatch. Pharah wants to be in Overwatch, but it disbanded before she ever had a chance to do so, right? She works from like a private security firm guarding a pyramid in Egypt, basically. That's what she does. So it's very, very frustrating when you get 2 years down the line and you still kind of don't know, well, Winston put out the recall, right? This is like the big plot thread that's meant to have sparked everything and caused everything to start changing and cause characters to interact with each other and move around and do things. It is the call to action, a literal call to action in narrative terms. And why? Why has he done the recall? Things are just bad, apparently. Things aren't going quite right, and Winston thinks that Overwatch is needed for something, I guess. And then there's Talon that are kind of up to something, I guess. Does anyone know? I mean, we kind of know Doomfist's like philosophy. Doomfist, who likes to, thinks that struggle is sort of the way that humanity gets better. The very sort of social Darwinist incel style mindset, where he's like, oh yeah, no, people should be fighting each other because that's how you get better. Yay, anarchy. He's that kind of dude, and it's like, well, is that Talon's motive, just to cause fighting for no real reason? Is that it? What does Maximilian feel about that? Like, Maximilian is such a cool design. He's such a cool character. Like, people really caught on to him, this idea of an evil mafia-looking robot, right? That's a really cool idea. And we know nothing about him. We know nothing about him, we know nothing about Doomfist, we know nothing about Reaper. We don't really understand their working relationship either. Talon apparently has like a council, but Doomfist is the leader of Talon, or one of the leaders of Talon, and Reaper is now on the council. Does Reaper and Doomfist have the same rank in Talon? Do we know? No, we don't. We don't know anything. And that's where I get really frustrated. And it was kind of like a shocking revelation of like, well, it's been so long since we saw any comics. And it was sort of emphasized by this clip that Jeff did on Fran's stream from BlizzCon, where Jeff goes on to explain, well, I'll just let Jeff explain it to you. Here's Jeff.
We love story content. Obviously, the animated shorts have been fantastic. A lot of people have been asking about comics. They're like, it's been ages since you guys have done comics. We are very interested in doing more comics, and we actually have a plan for how we want to do more comics and exactly what the comics would be. And there's a lot of good reasons that I'm not going to get into why the comics kind of slowed down for a little bit, but we are excited about comics and talking about comics again.
Beautifully said, Jeff. So it's a very, very Blizzard thing, right? It's a very Blizzardy answer. Oh yeah, we love the idea of comics and we love bringing them out and we love making them, but we can't for a variety of good reasons that I'm not going to go into. And I think that's where I get frustrated myself. Like, if they came out and said, oh yeah, no, we're having trouble publishing the comics because, you know, the deal with Dark Horse fell through, so we need another publisher to actually justify doing them, then sure, fine. You know, there's a reason given and it's understandable and okay, whatevs. Or we have this deal with Dark Horse that we're going to release them at this time and then that's what's going to happen with them. But then Blizzard don't like giving out dates and don't like giving out times ahead of time in case they miss them and people get upset at that. I think the thing that frustrates me most is that there's just no news. And as someone who likes the lore in Blizzard games, like I grew up playing Warcraft. Like, one of the first games I ever played on a PC was literally Warcraft Orcs vs. Humans. I grew up playing Blizzard's games. I fell in love with, like, the StarCraft plotline. Warcraft 3, in my mind, is one of the best written games out there. It's a relatively simple plotline, but it's a bunch of interesting characters all interacting in interesting ways. As a result, superb game, superb storyline. Brood War, superb storyline, superb game overall. Blizzard can make good stories, and sure, some of the stuff had changed, sure, it's a different time and a different era, but I want to see the same for Overwatch. I want to have the same love and compassion poured into the storyline for Overwatch, and it just feels like it's a constant non-starter, right? It just feels like it's constantly, oh yeah, this is going to happen, and then nothing happens, and nothing comes of it. You know, the Sombra's got something on Tatyavolskaya. Oh, apparently the Russians are working with the Omnics while fighting the Omnics and getting tech from the Omnics. What does that mean? Are we ever going to see a revelation around that? Is there any conclusion to that plot thread? Probably not. Who knows? Let's take another example. Talon's going to do something. Talon wants to start a war. Who knows what they're doing with that? Widowmaker visits the grave of her dead husband. That's actually kind of an interesting plot thread. Should Widowmaker be allowed to do that sort of thing? Is that really, like, Talon allow that for Widowmaker? That's kind of an interesting development. She still must have some feelings to want to go and mourn. That's interesting. Like, that really annoys me. It really annoys me when you don't get that flashing out of characters. And, like, let me highlight one thing that's surreal to me, especially. Okay? One of the most popular characters in the game, if not the most popular character in the game, won't surprise anybody, it's Mercy, okay? Mercy is extremely popular, not only as someone who gets played a lot, but also just as a character. People really, really like the idea and like the ideals that she upholds. She's the pacifist, she's the healer. She is the person who wants, you know, everything to calm down for people to talk. She's very reasonable, very level-headed, the caregiver, the healer, the support. Mercy doesn't have a comic dedicated to her. The only time Mercy appears in a comic, I believe, is in the previous Retribution comic, the Uprising comic set in the past when they go out and they go and fight in London with Tracer's first real mission. And she features in that comic for a couple of pages just saying, oh, Tracer, don't worry, we'll look after you. And that's kind of it. And that's all the interaction we get out of Mercy. At all. With anybody. Like, surely there's way more to be developed there. Surely there's way more to do there. And you can think of a million interesting situations as well that you would want to see explored with these characters. Situations that you wouldn't want to see as well done in a live-action cinematic, or, well, not live-action, but in a cinematic, right? I want to see what happens if Moira and Mercy meet up again. Like, how would that go down? Like, can you imagine how cool it would be to see an encounter between Moira and Reaper and Soldier 76 and Mercy at the same time, and just have, like, the two clashing ideologies, two backstories meeting together, and get some revelations out about those characters, and get you invested more in the story, because that, at the end of the day, is what all of this is about, right? You make these things to get that investment, and if Blizzard are going to stop making them, then I would just wish they'd let us know, and I just wish they'd let us know what's going on with it, because they have a lore department, they have people writing, they have people making stuff, and it just feels like we never get anything. Like, we never see any of it, we never see any reasons behind any of it, we never see anything more than some obscure tweets, maybe off of Michael Chu about what he's up to, and that's kind of all we ever get. And this community around Overwatch is so creative, is so passionate, is so enthralled by the world and the ideas, the amount of cosplayers, art, stories, everything that gets built up around Overwatch. Like, people want to know about these characters. People want to know about what's going on with them. And there's just nothing. I was pretty optimistic when one of the artists who worked on one of the first comics, the Reinhardt comic, got picked up full-time by Blizzard. His name is Nest Kane. He's a really good artist, has a really striking visual style. He was hired full-time by Blizzard. He basically invented what Brigitte looks like. basically. Like, it's his, he made Brigitte as a character, not as like a gameplay thing, right? He had nothing to do with that, so don't go tweeting at Nescane that it's his fault. But yeah, he made that character. Of course, he had Blizzard's input, but he was a big influence on that. He was hired full-time by Blizzard. What's he up to? What's he doing? Because his art is really cool. I'd love to see more comics by that guy, but just nothing. Just complete radio silence. And I just find it so frustrating. And I don't know about you guys too. I mean, I want to know what you guys want to see out of the comics, or what you guys want to see out of Overwatch's lore in general. Do you even care about the lore? Do you wish that they would just like dump the lore department? Or do you think that there is merit to this? Do you want to see more of it? Because I kind of do. You know, I like these characters. They have this big talented group of voice actors. They have this big talented group of creative people. Let them do stuff. And let us see it. Alright guys, thanks for watching to the end. I've been Josh, as one voice amongst many here at the Unit Lost channel. If you do want to find me on Twitter, I am at @1_amongst_many. You can also find me on twitch.tv/ESL_1_amongst_many there as well. Just search for one amongst many on the relative social platforms. You'll probably find me. If you do want to find out more about Sty as well, he's at Unit Lost Gaming. And, of course, hit the subscribe button and the bell if you want to be notified of when a new video goes out on the channel. Alright you guys, hopefully we'll see you next time. Toodles.